Welcome to the 100th episode of InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name for the 100th time is Gabe.
And my name for the 100th time. Well, really? 100?
100.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Well, I mean, I guess technically more than 100 because we've got several Patreon bonus episodes. We've got several non-Patreon bonus episodes. So a lot.
Yeah,
a lot of stuff.
Well, my name is Jeff.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Jeff.
Nice to meet you.
How are you doing today?
Did I ruin the flow of that?
It's fine. The flow is useless.
Sorry.
It's all right.
That's
how you
that's
doing?
my 100th screw up.
Oh, I've got more than 100. I've got about 100 screw ups per episode. Excuse me.
I'm doing pretty good. We just got done with we're at the end of our holidays here.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, we've got New Year's coming up, but I don't really have anything for New Year's.
Yeah. There's usually, I usually don't have anything planned or anything like that, but no, doing pretty well. Went to see my family, had a good time. So
cool.
We're doing good.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
Pretty good. I saw family too. We drove to Chicago. Which was
we did that too.
The worst part of the whole experience. But
oh no,
it's fine. My sleep schedule has been really messed up because I have the next 3 weeks off.
Yeah,
and I was trying to get onto a regular sleep schedule instead of my work sleep schedule, and it's been a difficult battle so far.
Oh geez,
let me tell you that. Other than that, though, I mean, good times. I got to see family. Got to eat some delicious food.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh man, I was over at because My parents live in Chicago now, and like my sister and my brother-in-law they moved there, but I have an aunt and uncle that lived out there. They've been living out there ever since I can remember.
Sure. And
I got I rarely get to ever see them, so I've actually been seeing a lot more lately since my parents moved out there. And whenever their place, a really nice place, and we had like this like we didn't do like a dinner thing. They just had hors d'oeuvres.
Okay.
That was all that was there. But like I ate so much.
Yeah.
They were like dig in. We have too much of this stuff. Just have what you want. And I'm like, that's the worst thing to tell me because I will eat everything. If you tell me to eat, I will eat.
Yeah. Well, do you know what hors d'oeuvres means in French?
What does it mean, Gabe?
Well, I don't know. I was asking you.
Dang it.
That has been French Corner for, the French Quarter for you guys.
Oh, goodness.
So this is our 100th episode.
Yeah.
We've got a little bit of different plan for today.
Just put like some party noisemakers.
Yeah,
noises.
I'll put some party noisemakers in here. We got a little bit different plan for this week because it's a 100th episode. We got to do something special. So instead of giving you guys the, typical good quality questions we usually have, instead we have a bunch of questions that we've been putting off for the last 2 years because we don't have good answers for them.
Right.
So strap in.
So this is the garbage.
What kind of? I think we could, if we
not
just
to say
do
they're a bad quality.
There's nothing wrong with the questions. It's just that they're
our
not
answers are not satisfactory.
Yeah, they're not the kind of questions that we're like, oh yeah, let's get some good discussion out of this. We might get some out of a couple of them. I don't know, but they're just questions that are kind of either hard for us to answer or don't quite conform to the format we usually stick to.
Sure. Okay.
So yeah, we'll get to those in a little bit. Before that, you wanna get to the Dragon's Horde segment?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay. So I want you to imagine, Jeff. You wake up one morning, okay? You're lying in bed, and then you remember that your work schedule got changed.
Okay.
So you have to get out. You have to get up and you have to run out of there. You have to get out of there as fast as you can. You have to get to work. So you get up, you grab your keys, you throw your clothes on, you run out to the car, you start the car, and oh no, something's wrong with the car.
Oh crap.
You remember that you need to get a new catalytic converter. And for some reason that was stopping you from starting. I don't know. I don't know.
Jeff,
how cars work. So
what?
Hey, you get out of don't be alarmed. It's me from the future.
Gabe, how are you?
I know that this segment is real bad. Okay? I didn't know where I was going when I started it. I was just vamping for a while. So it's real bad. Do you want to just skip ahead?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. And you know where we're going to skip ahead to?
Where?
The Dragon's Horde.
You buy a catalog.
And then you wake up and it was all a dream, and right in front of you is the Dragon's Horde.
Whoa!
All right. So our Dragon's Horde item today it's a bit of a long one. I hope that's okay. It was submitted by Avonshill with the request that it be for our 100th episode. So
cool.
I thought a good long one would be fitting. So,
Sure.
So let's get started. So this item is called the Typhoon, and it is a magical katana, and it's got some interesting effects on here. Like I like the format of what Avonshill did with this.
Cool.
So, legend speaks of a time when the mighty Ryu, dragon of lightning and storms, once sent a storm towards a small fishing town off the coast of Nawasi. As the farmers and fishers grabbed their families attempting to flee, a lone Ronin stood to face the storm, calling out, "O mighty Ryu, please calm your fury and quell your anger, for this village has offered you no ill will." Equally, the dragon turned to face the swordsman, intrigued as it was surprised at the audacity of this tiny creature with the courage to speak up to him. In a thunderous voice that shook the land, the dragon responded, "Should you survive the night or bear the burden of my wrath, I shall concede your demand and I will retreat." With that, the lightning simmered in the clouds as an avatar of the storm dragon burst out from the sky, appearing before the Ronin. The battle was fought throughout the night, shattering the sky with bolts of lightning and shards of the land. So I'm kind of thinking like Dragon Ball Z when there's bits of mountain flying around everywhere. With a thunderous, deafening clap, the waves and dust settled as the storm subsided, leaving only the lone Ronin's katana sticking out of the ground. As this katana contains the remnants of the Storm Dragon's avatar, upon attuning to this katana, the wielder must make a charisma check, DC 16. On a failure, the wielder receives 2d6 lightning damage, sending the sword flying 15 feet away and failing the attunement.
Cool.
On a success, the wielder feels the humming static of the blade and realizes how heavy it feels.
Ooh.
Upon the first use of this blade, the wielder quite literally unleashes a storm. The katana is enchanted with a one-time use of the Storm of Vengeance spell and is considered a +2 katana. So the details of that spell are on page 279 of the Player's Handbook. And Storm of Vengeance is no joke.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. So Storm of Vengeance, it's a 9th level spell in the Player's Handbook.
Dang.
And I'll give a brief little rundown of what it does. It lasts for several rounds, and it does like something different each time. So the first round creates a huge storm centered on a point you can see, spreading out to 360 feet. So like a pretty big radius. There's lightning, there's thunder, strong winds. Anyone under the cloud has to make a Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, they take thunder damage and become deafened. And then each round after that you maintain concentration, it produces additional effects as well. So round 2 creates acid rain that deals a d6 damage to everything under the cloud.
Wow.
Again, 360-foot radius.
Yeah.
So a gigantic 720-foot area. Everybody takes thunder damage. Everybody's deafened. Everybody takes acid damage. Round 3, you call 6 bolts of lightning to strike 6 creatures or objects of your choice. So it's kind of like these
Call lightning
spell.
Yeah.
So 10d6 damage on a failed save or half on a successful save to 6 targets of your choice. Round 4, you bring down hailstones. Each creature under the cloud takes 2d6 bludgeoning damage. So that's every creature, not every object, but still, I imagine objects are probably taking some damage.
Yeah,
too.
for sure.
And then from rounds 5 to 10, I think it only lasts for 10 rounds, but for 5 to 10, gusts and freezing rain assail the area under the cloud. Everything becomes difficult terrain and is heavily obscured. Every creature takes a d6 cold damage. Ranged weapon attacks are impossible within the area. There is the wind and rain count as a severe distraction for the purpose of maintaining concentration on spells. And gust of wind automatically disperse any like fog or mists or similar phenomena that are in the area. So like if someone casts a fog cloud spell, that's out of there.
Right. Okay.
So
Yeah. You wouldn't be able to add anything to it.
Exactly. So like all those things happen to a huge area.
Right.
This is a great example of a 9th level spell because although it may not do like 1 billion damage, the scale of this spell is insane. You can take down an army with like just round 2 of this spell. They've already taken like 3d6 damage of normal people are going to be gone. You could destroy a city like that.
Right.
All the commoners are dead at that point.
Yeah. No, this is a bad time for all involved.
Exactly. So with this sword, the Typhoon, the first time you use it, it does that.
Jeez.
However, after you use it, the katana becomes a +2 lightning tongue katana. So it's like the flame tongue sword in the Dungeon Master's Guide, but lightning.
Cool.
So when this blade is drawn periodically after this, and again, this is after casting the Storm of Vengeance.
Yeah.
When the blade is drawn, it periodically crackles with lightning. You get a +2 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with this magic weapon. When you hit with an attack using this magic sword, the target takes an extra 2d6 lightning damage. In stormy weather, the blade sheds bright light in a 10-foot radius and dim light for 10 additional feet. And then when this weapon is not in the wielder's hand, but is within 60 feet of the wielder, so like within 60 feet of the person it's attuned to, I imagine, because I guess you're not wielding it if it's not in your hand, it can be summoned back to your hand as a bonus action. The flavor of this summon looks like a small bolt of lightning until it reaches the hand and becomes a katana once again.
Cool.
So again, it's an item that the first time it is used creates a massive storm that is incredibly destructive.
Right.
After that point, it becomes a very powerful lightning sword that gives off light, like a torch basically. And anytime it's not in your hand, you can turn it into lightning and bolt it back to your hand.
Sure.
I think this is an amazing weapon right here.
Yeah, that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
Like the first time you use the thing,
Yeah.
and you don't know it's coming.
Yeah.
Whew.
Oh man, I'm at this wedding. Oh cool, I was gifted this cool sword. Let's see what this sword does.
Oh yeah, let me open up this champagne bottle.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, like Alton Brown shows up and he's like, oh yeah, I can use this to open up this.
So I have a little tangent to go on, Jeff. Or a tangent question to ask you.
Oh yeah?
What level do you think Alton Brown is?
Realistically, I'd say he's probably level 4.
Okay.
Because normal, average, real life humans probably don't have a class level.
Yeah.
Like maybe some of them have maybe 1 or 2 levels in a class, but I'd say Alton Brown was he's somewhere between 3 and 5.
Okay. I can see that. I can see that. Anyway, yeah. So I love this. I love this weapon. I think it's a really, really cool weapon. I love katanas. As evidenced by my character Ichi.
Yeah.
That he comes up in conversation every now and then. Yes. I love the abilities it has. I love the Storm of Vengeance spell. When Jay was running his Eberron campaign, my character Perth, unknown to the rest of the party, started developing a dragon mark. And that was the ability that his dragon mark had. He could do a Storm of Vengeance once.
Yeah, didn't you cast it while we were on an airship or something at one point?
Yeah, we were on an airship about to be attacked by a bunch of other airships or something, and I think I had to leave early that session. So basically, that was when it was revealed to the rest of the party that I had this dragon mark, because Jay had, my character did it. He used his thing. It burned off part of his clothes, like the dragon mark did, revealing to the rest of the players, and then my character passed out. And then you guys went on to do whatever. I don't know. I had to leave. So
yeah. So
I know you guys had a big party or something.
Yeah, you cast that was sort of you did this really big thing to stop all the all the enemy ships or something like that. Yeah. And that was your heroic act for that.
Right.
For that part.
And that was back when I think Storm of Vengeance in 3rd edition was not concentration based. So me passing out in 5th edition would make it stop working.
Right.
But this was before, so it didn't. Yeah. So I love this item. I think it's really cool. Good job, Avonshil. Thank you for the 100th episode submission. And it's really cool.
Yeah.
So
I can imagine it's you kind of you pick up this sword and it's sort of it's shocking. It's got that sort of
it is shocking.
But no, it's got the static hum and everything. You're like, okay, this is powerful. You use it the first time and this huge storm erupts, and I like to think that the storm of the essence of that dragon or whatever is the storm is raging and it's slowly being sucked into the sword. Ooh. And then the sword gains its power and stuff like that from the storm.
Yeah, I like that.
And then and then from then on you got this extra lightning damage. You can there's not a whole lot of times that you're gonna need to bring your katana back to your hand as a bonus action, because a katana is not a throwing weapon, but I mean at the very least, you don't have to worry too much about getting stolen or what.
Anything is a throwing weapon if you try hard enough. If I could bring my weapon back to my hand, you can bet it's going to be a throwing weapon.
Now, if it's a magical item like this, and you throw it, you would be throwing it as an improvised weapon. Would it still get the lightning damage?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
I mean, you could, if whether you're proficient or not, still counts as whatever the weapon is.
I guess. Well, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, somebody a DM could rule that you can't attune to it if you're not proficient in it,
sure,
or something.
Sure. Okay. Well, I don't know. So yeah, you're just throwing katanas.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was the Typhoon submitted by Avanshil. Thank you, Avanshil.
Yes, thank you very much.
If anybody wanted to submit magic items for us to discuss, or questions for our main segment, or stories for the funeral pyre, or if they just want to say, hey, congratulations for 100 episodes.
Oh, yeah.
How would they do so?
They can send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com.
Yes. So I also want to tell everybody that our show is brought to you by our wonderful patrons.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much, patrons. So if you are interested in supporting the show, if you like hearing us talk and you want to hear more of it, you want to help us make the show better, you can go to patreon.com/interpartyconflict and become a patron. Patrons, donate any amount of money, $1 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month or more or whatever. And in return, you get bonus content for it. So we've got
our many outtakes.
We've got many outtakes, all of which have their own individual sound file, and probably will for some time.
So many tangents.
We've got outtakes on there. We've got fantasy fiction. Shoot, I need to write my fantasy fiction for this month. I got like 5 days left. Oh well. Fantasy fiction for all of our patrons. $5 and up patrons get to take part in our bonus podcast, InterPatron-Conflict.
Oh, yeah.
Which every month we come out with one bonus episode for all of our patrons. Last month we did an episode talking all about our plans for the little extra podcasts we're going to try out this year.
Yeah.
Talked about the details on those. So if you're interested in hearing about that, you can become a patron and listen to that.
Yeah.
We've had episodes about like video games, about food, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Then also we have a
all
monthly,
of our favorite things.
All our favorite things, exactly. Then we have a monthly patron-only Roll20 game for our top-tier patrons. Of course, if we don't have enough top-tier patrons, I start canvassing from lower tiers as well.
Sure.
And also, if you're a top-tier patron, I will write about your character for the monthly fantasy fiction. So
cool.
We've got some cool rewards on there. So go to patreon.com/interpartyconflict. Check that out and let us know if anything sounds good to you. You can help out the show and get some cool stuff for it.
Awesome.
Also, we have a giveaway today. We have a wonderful adventure from Goblin Stone, Chapel on the Cliffs. It's a low-level 5th edition adventure with a bit of a spooky theme to it. So it's a great adventure. And Jeff, who is our winner this week?
This week, our winner is Apathy Wizards.
Winner! Gobble, gobble, gobble. Yes, congratulations, Apathy Wizards. You should be getting that in your email in the next few days. If it hasn't come by a week from today, I guess, then let us know and we will help you get sorted out.
Oh, and they say they're a huge fan and we should keep it up.
Awesome. And speaking of that, if somebody wanted to enter this drawing, Jeff, how would they do so?
Well, they can send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com with Chapel on the Cliffs in the subject line.
Yes. And what should they put in the body?
I don't know. What do they want?
Maybe they say congratulations on 100 episodes.
Oh, yeah. Like congrats. You guys are awesome. Here's a picture of my cute dog.
Here's some money I decided to send you via email somehow.
Like it's just anything a picture of a dollar bill taped to a piece of paper.
Yep. There you go. It's a dollar bill taped to a piece of paper. They crumple it up and throw it off a cliff. Go get it.
They throw it at the screen.
Oh, that's great. Somebody should do that. So it's a great adventure, and Goblin Stone is a great company of game makers. So check them out. And I also just a couple other little things. Go check out Crit Academy at critacademy.com. It's another great podcast where Justin, Ian, and Brandon create new and reusable content for players and DMs alike. They also recently released a book of their unearthed tips and tricks, which I helped write. So you can find that on DM's Guild. You can, if you go to critacademy.com, it's like right there on the front page.
Yeah.
Super easy to find. You can find it on there. So buy that. It's a great product. It's something great you guys should check out. Also, you should check out D&D Character Lab. It's yet another great podcast where Garen and Dan create characters and then pit them against each other and debate whose character is better. So great podcasts. Check them out. You want to get into these ooey gooey delicious questions, Jeff?
Sure, sounds good. All right, first question comes from Mostly Joe on email. They ask, have you tried D&D style emulation with a different system, i.e. Dungeon World, GURPS, Dungeon Fantasy? Is GURPS Dungeon Fantasy one thing?
I don't know, and that's one of the reasons why we haven't answered this question first. So yeah, this guy Mostly Joe sent us several questions very early on in the show. I want to say maybe before we recorded the first episode. I'm not sure.
Right, yeah, this might have been part of like the first like wave of questions you tried to find.
Maybe. And so...
Oh, gosh.
Sorry, Mostly Joe, but we have several of your questions today that we just don't have a good answer for.
Yeah, they're not even listeners anymore because they're just
probably not. I mean, we've answered. Let's be fair, we've answered probably 3 or 4 of his questions.
That's true. But, true. Yeah, I definitely recognize the name. But.
Yeah. So have you tried D&D style emulation with different systems? Short answer, no.
Short answer, no. Yeah,
I guess.
Does like. And by different systems, do you specifically mean tabletop systems? Because like I've toyed with the idea of playing D&D using, or like doing a D&D style thing using like Minecraft or something, you know, some sort of system like that. Like there's plenty of like video games where you can make your own, you know, maps and adventures and things like that. And like a lot of them are very D&D like, not all of them.
Yeah.
You know, so like. Short answer, no. Long answer, no.
Right.
But yeah, because like I just haven't really. Neither of us has really gone too far outside of D&D.
Yeah.
I mean, like there's a couple things like Mutants and Masterminds. I think I made a character once. You know.
Right.
And then I think I've read a couple books on a couple other ones, but
I remember once or twice I tried making a Mutants and Masterminds character that felt like a D&D spellcaster, but it didn't feel like a D&D spellcaster. I think I might have played a version of GURPS that was like supposed to be fantasy or something.
Okay.
I think it might have been one of the first role-playing games I ever played. Like I think I mentioned, especially when I was interviewing my brother a long time ago, I played in a game that they made called Eclectic, I think it was called. And then I later played a game of GURPS with my brother that, looking back, was very fantasy, but I'm not 100% sure that it was GURPS.
Huh.
It might have been GURPS. It might not have been.
It was probably just D&D.
I mean, it probably was. Let's be honest here. So I don't know. I have toyed with the idea of running a session of the Terrible RPG that is kind of meant to emulate D&D.
Oh, sure.
With that, it's very free form. You can do a lot of stuff with it.
Yeah. So you could just run a D&D adventure, but using the Terrible mechanics.
I guess. Yeah. But I haven't done it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It'd be something fun to try out, but so far the answer is no.
Yeah. Another question from Mostly Joe through email. If you were looking to emulate a darker, low fantasy game, what system would you use?
D&D, I guess? I don't know. I mean, like, the problem with Mostly Joe's questions, and it's not that it's a problem with the questions.
No,
it's
no,
the
not
problem
at all.
with us answering the questions is that
most of our experience is with D&D.
I guess, and they're very like, if you were going to experiment with this mashup of stuff, what would you do? And it's like, I don't know, I've never experimented with that.
Right, yeah.
I've never played any of these games that you're asking us, that you're giving as examples. I don't know.
I mean, the only like darker system I can think of, what was it, Vampire Masquerade or something like that?
Oh, I've never played that. I own a couple of the books, but I've never actually played it.
I know Steve had played it at one point, and I just remember them describing like the way that they were making their characters, and like, because you're making vampires, and like there's certain like drawbacks you can take to gain more, like you can take flaws to get more points for power and stuff like that. So like, I don't know if it was like Steve's character, I think it might have been, maybe Dave was playing at the time or something, I can't remember, but like somebody had a vampire that could only eat, it wasn't that they couldn't drink blood, they had to eat flesh, so that's trickier. And then like it had to be flesh of like children, but it had to be flesh of children who had just eaten sweets or something like that.
I mean, let's be fair, that's all children.
I mean, right? So like you had to find like like children with high blood sugar content,
Interesting.
and like that was the only way they were able to feed. So
kids that do not yet realize they have diabetes.
Right. So it was like you had to there was the penalty of it. It was going to be a lot harder for you to feed, but you also were super strong in other ways or something like that. So like there were like drawbacks, but you got more power. Anyway.
But it's asking about low fantasy, and I don't know. I don't really like the idea of low fantasy. Low fantasy being like medieval but less magical.
Sure. Okay. So closer to like the first couple seasons of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
there's magic in the world, but it is nowhere near the forefront until,
Well, hey, maybe that's an easy answer. Is there a Lord of the Rings? Not Lord of the Rings. Is there a Game of Thrones role-playing game?
I would imagine so.
There's got to be.
It's got to be at least one, if not several.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those popular things. Like we've talked about before that Firefly has 2 separate tabletop games.
Yeah, because like one's based on the show, one's based on the movie.
Right, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And like I've seen one of them, then it looked kind of interesting. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah. So I guess that's the answer. The Game of Thrones game.
Yeah. Game of Thrones, the game.
There you go.
Of Thrones, the game. Of Thrones, the game. Of Thrones.
Stop it.
Okay. Another question for Mostly Joe on email. Have you ever experimented with genre mashups? Supers, fantasy, sci-fi, teen drama, etc.
No.
Well, like your terrible RPG thing.
Well, I mean that's a game that doesn't really have a genre, and then you can do whatever genre you want with it. I mean,
I guess so.
You could. The answer is have you ever? Sorry, the question is have you ever? And I haven't.
Okay.
In theory, yeah, you could do a superhero / fantasy game in something like that. You could do it in Mutants and Masterminds too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never.
I've definitely heard some stories of people playing D&D and like throwing in some like futuristic sci-fi stuff in there that like you maybe not describe it exactly that way because the characters don't know what they're looking at. They're like, it's like, this is a dungeon. It's just metal walls.
There is,
there's
an old first edition adventure, I believe, called Expedition to the Barrier Peaks.
Okay.
That it's like one of the more well-known first edition adventures. And in that one, the players there's like a mountain where they go to this mountain, and then there's like a weird ruin that they explore. The walls are made of metal. There's like, they encounter objects that are made of this weird material that like, it's not metal. It's hard but flexible, and like it melts really easily. And it turns out it's to the players, it's plastic.
Right.
And I think there's like robots and stuff they encounter in there, like, metal golems and whatnot. And it's a well-known adventure, and that is kind of fantasy / sci-fi a bit.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I've thrown little like Easter eggs and stuff like that in my games, but nothing that I would say is really a genre mashup.
Sure. I mean, and like in these games, like you can easily go into like horror. Like horror is not far off of,
Sure.
you have undead and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be against playing one of these.
Mm-hmm.
Like hearing sci-fi teen drama kind of makes me think of, it's not teen drama, but the movie The World's End, which I mentioned last episode is like one of my favorite movies.
For sure.
Without any spoilers, like it is very much sci-fi / what do you even call that? Like buddy movie? I don't know.
Yeah. So, that's good enough.
Midlife crisis movie. I don't know if that's a genre. I don't know.
I feel like it is at this point, because there seem to be a lot of movies kind of like that where like it's the actual, like some of the Hollywood stars are doing more of these style of movies because they are themselves getting into that age.
Yeah.
So they're like, so they're kind of like pumping out these movies kind of like that.
There's another movie that it came out around the same time as The World's End, but it's called This Is the End.
Didn't you accidentally see it?
I think so. I think I went to go see that. It was playing somewhere, and I went to go see that thinking that it was The World's End. But
completely different
movie. It's like all of the comedians of the days, Seth Rogen, James Franco, and, Danny McBride, all of them. And the idea in that is that they're having this house party where they are all playing their character. They're playing themselves as characters in this movie. So like they are all very they're very much interpretations of themselves. So they're caricaturized versions of themselves in this movie. And Armageddon happens, like the rapture happens. And like angels and demons and stuff are like warring all over the planet while they're having this house party. And I guess that's kind of a genre mashup. I would love to play a game that is like that. Because that's, it's comedy, horror, survival movie. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I would love to play a game that was like that, but I think that would be harder. That would be pretty hard to pull off well.
Sure.
Yeah. Whether the movie pulls it off well or not, heck, that's up for debate.
Our next question comes from Steve through email. They ask, one of my players is a 5th edition Swashbuckler. I want to let her dual-wield guns, so I'm considering fudging the rules a bit. But I'm afraid it might be too powerful and overshadow the rest of her abilities. What should I do?
Yeah, we haven't answered this one because it's a fairly specific rules-based question that I don't know. I just feel like we wouldn't have a very satisfying answer to.
Yeah, because like immediately what comes to mind is it's like you reflavor the hand crossbow.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Well, and I think there was a little bit of context to this that I didn't include in the question, and it's like they want to dual wield guns. But when you dual wield anything, you can't add your modifier to your offhand or whatever the rule is.
Sure.
And they were considering letting the player add it to both because that'll make it more powerful, but is it going to be too powerful? And how do you make it cool without making it too powerful and so on?
Right. Well, a few things to keep in mind. The like I said, you could just reflavor hand crossbow into a gun, that way it's still within the balance.
Yeah.
Like, and then there is the crossbow expert feat, which does allow you to basically dual wield hand crossbows. Mm-hmm. You technically don't have to.
Okay.
The way that the feat is written, you could like it's like when you attack with a light weapon. I think it's just when you attack with a single-handed weapon, you can then shoot. You can use a bonus action to then shoot with a loaded hand crossbow it doesn't even say in another hand. So you could technically have, if you have the crossbow expert feat, you don't have to load crossbows anymore. Like they lose the loading keyword.
Yeah.
So you can have a shield and a hand crossbow, shoot with a hand crossbow, and then because you attacked with a one-handed weapon, you can then shoot again with your crossbow.
That's pretty cool.
So you can have a shield and be shooting twice with that, but you could also be technically dual wielding them. So
sure,
and that way they can have like different, if they're getting like magic weapons or something like that, they can have different enchantments on each one. So like one of them's lightning, one of them's thunder, or something like that.
And you could also have a sword in one hand, and then you could like stab, and then bam.
Yeah, so like swashbuckling. So they can have like a rapier in one hand and a crossbow in the other, and so that'd be kind of cool. But yeah, just you could reflavor it as a gun, and with that feat, it's not technically 2-weapon fighting. It still adds like it's its own separate mechanic from the feat specifically. Okay. It is not you can now two-hand fight with a hand crossbow, because you can't do that because 2-weapon fighting is specifically melee. Can you tell I've read up on these rules very recently?
Yeah.
2-weapon fighting is specifically with light, melee, and then there's things that can add on to that.
Yeah.
What is really interesting to me is that the hand crossbow is a light weapon. Light is only applicable to two-weapon fighting, which is only applicable to melee weapons.
That's weird.
So it has light for no reason that I can understand.
It might have been errated out. Have you checked their most recent errata?
Possibly.
Yeah.
It might have been errated out, or it might have been at one point implied that feat made it 2-weapon fighting, but it doesn't say that. Like as the rules is written, you can have a shield and shoot twice with the hand crossbow, which I have done with a character, and it's fun.
Sure,
it's a good build.
I think that we do have some evidence that like the feats are a little bit. There's a little bit of like old DNA in those, because like was it the grappling feat, the grappler feat that has text for something that does not exist in the rules anymore?
It's not in the newer prints of the book, and then it's not in like the errata or anything like that, but in the original print of the 5th edition player's handbook, the grappler feat does say something about it's like larger sized creatures don't automatically succeed their checks or whatever,
right?
Because like so there was
originally some text saying that large creatures automatically succeeded,
right? But they got rid of that. Like it's
and that was they did in the errata they did take that clause out of there.
Yeah. So there are ways to do this and make it and honestly I think that makes it pretty cool. Like the crossbow expert feat alone would help out with this. Treat the gun like a crossbow. You could if you wanted to make it a little bit special, you could, if they maybe went on some like big adventure to get these guns or something like that, they maybe make them D8s or,
sure.
give them, or like a bonus or something like that.
One thing in the question that I think is worth noting is that they asked, like, this person is afraid that it might make the character, it might overshadow the rest of her abilities.
Yeah.
And I think that is an interesting part of the question to focus on, because I've been in groups where like a player gets a cool weapon or a cool ability, and then suddenly like that's all their character is about.
Sure.
Like I think I've mentioned that there was a time, I think Chris might have been running,
Dang.
and Jay was playing a spellcaster who his original focus for his character was he was going to be a character that didn't do direct damage, but instead had like had like barrier, he had like barriers, and you like push enemies away and stuff like that. He had this spell where I think it was called Dolomar's Force Wave, where it just created like a big burst of force energy that would like push enemies back. And so he was intended to be like not a combat caster at all for a while, but then he came up with a cool tactic where he drop a bag of caltrops on his head and then use Dolomar's Force Wave, and Chris ruled that, oh yeah, it does like a ton of damage to every enemy around you. And from that point on, every combat, Jay would just bring out like 10 bags of caltrops. First round, drop one on himself, bam. Next round, drop one on himself, bam. And me as a fellow player, I mean, it's not my character. I don't really have a say in what he does, but it made his character way less interesting to me, because he was going to be a character with like a varied array of abilities and like with a particular focus that would probably be difficult to pull off well. And then in the end, it was just, I just do damage to everybody all the time ever.
Yeah.
And so I think there is a very valid concern of, I want to make this ability cool and powerful. I don't want it to then be every single round she's just firing 2 guns.
Right.
You know what I mean? She's got 2 guns, one for each of you.
Is that really much different than just like, a fighter who's all about their one weapon? They're going to use that one weapon all the time.
That's a good point.
I'm not super familiar with the Swashbuckler, though.
Yeah. My impression is just that, like, at the time of asking this question, the character had a bunch of different things they do.
Yeah.
And whereas a fighter probably from the beginning is always just going to be attacking.
Yeah, I guess the simplest thing is just reflavor some crossbows, have them take that feat,
General advice, try it out, and if you don't like it, talk with the player and say, hey, I would rather change that ruling back and try to take it in a different direction or something.
Yeah.
This was a while ago, so for all I know, they came up with another solution, so we just didn't have a good answer.
Yeah, they actually multi-classed into Warlock and Sorcerer.
Let me actually, because we were talking about feats, let me take a brief sidebar here and talk about, I often see people arguing about whether feats are too powerful or too weak.
Okay.
Oftentimes I hear people talk about how feats are really weak in 5th edition, to which I reply, did you see 4th edition? And we talked about on our episode about feats, which was quite a while ago, because we're on episode 100, if we haven't said that enough. We were singing the praises of feats, saying that like all of them are powerful enough and interesting enough that you could build a whole character on them.
Yeah.
And I still stand by that.
Yeah. I wouldn't say every single one of them.
Okay.
But most of them.
Right. But I just want to say that if you are gauging whether feats are powerful enough or too weak, based on whether or not your current character would use them, you're doing it all wrong. An ability does not have to be applicable to every character for it to be powerful. If I put in a feat that gives you a plus 50 on all attack rolls with Flame Bolt, like, okay, that's going to be amazingly powerful for anybody who has Flame Bolt. That doesn't mean, if you're playing a cleric, that doesn't mean that feat is not too powerful. It is too powerful because it gives you a ridiculous bonus to attack.
Right.
Just because an ability isn't relevant to your character doesn't mean that it is too weak or that it isn't powerful.
Yeah.
Because like anytime I do hear the argument of feats being too weak, the argument is, well, when would I ever use this feat? I don't know. That's not really, the feat doesn't have to be universally good. But that doesn't mean it's not powerful in the situation that calls for it. You know what I mean? The grappler feat is garbage to a spellcaster.
Right.
Or, I mean, for the most part, I imagine, it's mainly offensive grappling, right?
Yeah.
My impression is that it is mostly an offensive feat.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're a spellcaster, you're probably not going to be trying to grapple anybody.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean the grappler feat is bad.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it might be bad for other reasons. I don't know. But certain characters use certain feats.
Yeah.
Other feats that are like skill based, like alert or observant, those are great for people who want that to be the focus of their character. I could see someone building a character around having the observant feat and having a really high passive perception. Passive perception is bad, but that doesn't, just because your character isn't that type of character doesn't mean that it's a bad feat or that it's a weak feat. Anyway, I need to get that off my chest, because like anytime I see discussion about feats, people are always saying that they suck in 5th edition, and it's not that they suck, they're just very specialized.
Yeah, they're very specialized. They're like, if you're not interested in making that character, they're not going to be interesting to you.
Sure.
Observant is actually one of the ones I would always consider a really weak one, but ever since you brought up that passive perception thing, I'm like, well,
yeah,
let's look at observant one more time, which is sort of a silly thing to say.
Yeah.
There was another one that I was like, I don't know about that, but now that I think about it, it's pretty good. Alert. +5 to initiative is just really good.
That's pretty good, yeah.
And then you can't be surprised, and basically, like, you can very rarely get sneak attacked.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's a good feat. And it's real, but it's like one of those things that's like, well, okay, like, I guess I'm just going to be on watch all the time.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. But, you know, it's kind of cool. There was another one that is, oh yeah. There's actually, what the heck is it? There's one that just gives you a proficiency with 3 weapons.
Oh yeah, like Weapon Master. Or
like Weapon
like
Master.
That, yeah.
Like, I'd rather just take a level of fighter and have, you know, proficiency with all of the weapons.
Yeah, I'd say that is probably on the weaker side.
Yeah, and then Keen Mind, which is like, you know which way is north. You know how many hours are left before sunset, and you can accurately recall anything you've seen or heard in the past month.
Now, here's the thing. In a campaign that any of that is relevant, I would love to have that.
Sure.
Feat. That could be so cool in that type of a game.
Yeah.
But 5th edition doesn't really focus on that very much.
Right, and it's something that, like, as long as you take good notes.
Yeah, I mean, but if there's like, you heard a conversation and then 2 weeks later you're like, oh shoot, that was relevant to what we're going through right now. You know, you could immediately recall all of the, or you could tell the DM, I do exactly what I heard in that conversation. You know?
Yeah, which, like, I almost kind of feel like the DM like hates you at that point. It's like, no, you're supposed to figure it out this way, not just know it magically because of this one feat.
So I don't know. I just think that feats in 5th edition are very niche, but they are, each individual feat is so much more powerful than in 4th edition, and still pretty powerful compared to 3rd edition.
Like,
3rd edition had so many garbage feats, but even the good feats, like, yeah, there were some good feats that were really good, but most of them were just like, well, here's a flat bonus you add to something.
Yeah.
Whereas in 5th edition, I feel like so many of the feats let you do something that you just couldn't do.
Yeah.
You know.
First level human fighter with the archery, you can take with the human variant with the feat.
Yeah.
You can take the crossbow expert, and you can be firing twice with a hand crossbow, getting that extra +2 to attack. So you get 2 attacks per round with an extra +2 to attack roll, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, and then and you're also adding your modifier to the damage on both of them. Like that alone is pretty powerful. That's
pretty powerful.
That's a level 1 who's doing a D6 +3, let's say, at least. You know, D6 +3 twice. You know, 2d6 plus
2d6 +6. Yeah.
+6 with a fairly good bonus to their attack.
A higher attack roll than someone who's not a ranged fighter.
Yeah, that'd be with that stat, that'd be like a +7 to their attack. Like, you're always gonna hit a zombie.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So feats can be powerful.
Feats can be. Anyway, so that was a bit of a sidebar. Sorry about that.
Our next question comes from Jester Rain. This was on Reddit. How can you improve your GM skills to the point where you can change even simple cliched concepts into engaged plot hooks?
Yeah, this is a
Gabe?
This is a difficult question to answer, because it's basically like, how do you get really good at improvising? And I mean, I guess
get good scrub.
Practice.
I don't know.
It's not a bad question. Like, I'm sure that this is something that Jester Rain is wanting to get better at, and I guess the answer is just practice.
Yeah, simple cliched concepts and engaging plot hooks. I don't know. Yeah, it's It is just sort of experience.
And also like read a lot of fantasy, figure out like what other fantasy type, or I guess whatever genre you're doing, read a lot of fiction and find out how other writers or other authors have turned cliche concepts into engaging plot hooks.
Yeah, because a lot of times when you like read a really good book or something, you could always when you break it down, you can kind of be like, oh, okay, this is actually kind of simple.
Yeah.
When you think about it, like there's nothing really, in most cases, there's nothing really revolutionary about what people are writing. It's just the way that they write it.
Yeah.
It's the way they tell it. Like, there's the theory that there's only like 12 stories to be told. That's sort of, there's only so many things you could, talk about.
Sure.
It's just the way that you're experiencing them. So yeah, I guess just trying stuff out, just see what works, see what doesn't, play as often as possible then.
Absolutely.
That's probably that, but and that's probably the hardest thing to do is to play often because nobody's got time for that. So play more.
Yeah.
Play more games.
Play more games, practice, and
watch more movies, read more books.
Devour a lot more fiction.
Nom, 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 nom. Our next question comes from Therese Marie on Reddit. Okay, this is more like a specific rules one.
Yeah.
Can a way of the four elements monk stun or knock prone a construct or elemental, specifically lightning-based elemental? Rules is written, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
I don't quite understand why this is a question.
Well, it's because like the way of the four elements, the idea is the elements, the thing that's knocking them down or stunning them is like lightning or thunder.
Okay.
But it's not specifically elemental. Like it's not elemental damage. Like they're not.
Okay.
They're not unless they are resistant to stuns.
If they have an ability that makes them immune to stunning or being knocked prone, then
I mean, a lot of
immune.
I'm pretty sure there are some constructs in elementals that have like they're just resistant or immune to stun.
Yeah.
Or they can't be paralyzed or something like that.
Sure.
So like different conditions are, there are immunities and resistance to specific conditions.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, then no. But I mean, like as far as does this think of it more, it's more of a flavor, really.
Yeah.
Like unless it's specifically electric, lightning damage or thunder damage. Is it thunder or is it sonic? It's thunder in 5th edition.
It's thunder, yeah.
Like rules is written, it does.
Mm-hmm.
I guess if the DM wants to sway one way or another, as long as the DM's not doing that all the time, like maybe, if it's particularly powerful enemy or something like that, or if they, they specifically want it to be more difficult in this way.
Yeah.
I guess
to an extent it calls into question how rules-based reskinning should be. Uh-huh. If a player says, I want to be able to cast Fireball, but I want to describe it as
ice,
as ice, I guess.
Yeah.
If it still does fire damage,
right,
but the player describes it as ice, and then the players encounter something that is weak to ice but resistant to fire, do you treat it as the rules, which is fire damage, or do you treat it as the reskinning, which is ice damage?
Right.
I mean, the whole point of reskinning really is that you do not change the mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that in that case, or in this case, you should go by what the mechanics say rather than what the flavor says.
Yeah.
I suppose I could understand a DM going against that, but in that case, you should make it clear to the player beforehand that that's how you're going to be doing it, because otherwise you're basically saying, because you wanted to make it feel a little bit different because you didn't want it to get stale, I'm penalizing you for it.
Right. Now, would it make Fireball more powerful to be Ice Ball instead?
Technically, yes.
Okay.
Not necessarily to a noticeable amount, but there are more creatures that are resistant to fire than other elements.
Sure, yeah.
So, I mean, is it going to break a game? Absolutely not. Probably not.
Okay.
But, there are more abilities that are fire-based because there are more creatures that are fire-resistant.
Yeah.
So, there is a little bit of a way to game the system if you are able to change elements.
Sure.
But...
And, I mean, they have come out and said that Fireball is specifically overpowered.
Okay.
Just... Because it's an iconic spell, they've made it more powerful than it should be for a spell of its level.
Sure.
So maybe in a way to balance it out, there are more things that have a resistance to fire. So that's not as a big deal for them to kind of put that in there as a sort of like, hey, everyone loves Fireball.
Yeah.
So yeah, rules is written. I'd say it works.
Yeah.
All right. Our next question comes from @Tiefling for Life. What RPG would you use for a game based on Halo?
I don't know. I don't think Halo would work as a tabletop game for several reasons I can get into, but if you have any thoughts, go for it.
Warhammer.
Okay.
I mean, I want to say there is some sort of like, and like this, you know, if he's thinking more of if they're thinking more about like a RPG, like a D&D game,
yeah,
that's not so much, but there are, I want to say there's probably some sort of tabletop tactical Halo thing. There's gotta be,
but I mean,
there's no way they're not milking that.
I guess the question is, when you say based on Halo, what exactly do you mean? Do you mean the first-person shooter, multiplayer, arena-based?
Because there are Halo RTSs, and you could get Halo figurines or something like that, and like do like a tabletop war game or something. I mean, yeah, you could like reskin your Marines as Spartans instead. You know,
I mean, like if you're asking about a game based on like the lore of Halo or the setting of Halo, yeah, sure. Pretty much any RPG that deals with, guns and space travel and stuff. I'm sure there's lots of them out there. Right.
Yeah. You definitely want to stay within the genre. Yeah. As close as you can.
Like for me though, I feel like if you're saying based on Halo, you probably mean the first person shooter aspect of it.
Yeah.
In which case I don't think a tabletop game is ever going to come even close, because tabletop games pretty much by necessity have to be turn-based. Maybe there are some that are not turn-based, but like to an extent, they have to be slow-paced.
Yeah.
Because you're not looking at a screen where a computer is doing all the calculations to see everything that happens and so on. You're having like it's an interactive story or whatever you're doing. There's so many levels of abstraction that you have to add a time element to. You can't know exactly what is happening in the battle as fast as a computer can, so it has to be to some extent turn-based,
right,
or something close to turn-based. So I don't know how you would do a game like Halo that would feel as fast-paced as Halo. I remember a long time ago, good friend Nick, we used to play Smash Brothers together all the time. Smash Brothers is a great game. It's a fast-paced fighting game.
Yeah.
And don't get upset at me for saying it's a fighting game. It's a fighting game. Shut up. Anyway, so we would be playing Smash Brothers, and this was a little while after I got Nick to start playing D&D with me. He said one comment sometime about like we were having this fast-paced back and forth, thing in Smash Brothers, and he was like, "Yeah, man, this reminds me of all those D&D battles that we have." And I'm thinking to myself, what game have you been playing? What part of a fast-paced like twitch reflex fighting game feels like D&D? No matter what version you're playing, is slow as molasses. It is turn-based. It is like you look at the battlefield and you're like, okay, well, I want to use this tactical ability, so I'm going to move here, I'm going to place it here, and so on and so on. Like, no part of that feels like Smash Brothers to me at all. But to him, it did.
Sure.
It did enough for him to say that.
Right.
Similarly, maybe there's people that feel like D&D feels like Halo. I don't know. But to me, no. I don't know how I would make a role-playing game that evokes the like fast-paced, skill-based game of Halo in a tabletop game.
I mean, like the Halo games. Now, I haven't played very much of the Halo games myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there is a sense of adventure because, you're going through the levels and like you're basically kind of going through a dungeon, and there's there's puzzles and stuff to solve in a way. Again, sorry, like I'm not that familiar with Halo.
Oh yeah, I've never owned an Xbox of any kind.
Sure, I've played some multiplayer. I think I've like played 2 and 3. I played multiplayer a lot, but I never really played the campaigns that much. So, like I'm sure there's probably plenty of story and lore, and like there is a sort of a sense of dungeon crawling in these kind of games. So like I don't, it wouldn't be impossible to do in something like a D&D style game. I wouldn't do D&D just because it's not anywhere near close enough to the genre.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'd have to reflavor so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not too sure what the best.
Yeah, I mean, if it's the lore you're going for, sure. Like pretty much any like sci-fi or big scale combat game you're playing could work, I guess.
Now there's a going back to like Warhammer is like a bigger army based one. They're like the same company, Games Workshop, has basically made like a smaller scale. It's more like small squadrons rather than a large army. You have maybe like it's a much smaller army or like little squadrons, and there's more rules involved, and like it's much more turn based. Well, I mean, the whole game, the Warhammer is turn based, but it's like you do your whole army thing, and then I do my whole army thing. But in this one, it's smaller, so it's like, okay, my guys move, then your guys move, then my guys shoot, then your guys shoot.
Yeah.
And then there's a few more mechanics involved, and like there's more like smaller objectives and things like that. So that might be kind of cool, and like you can kind of set that up in a dungeon like design. So they are going through this enemy base, and they have to find this part and activate that thing and open up this door, make your way. And like you can, it's all miniature, so you can have like terrain and stuff on the board. So that'd be kind of fun.
Okay.
So I don't know. I forget what it's called. Strike Team. I think it's Strike Team. Sorry, Dave.
Well, I will try to look it up and put it in the show notes.
So yeah, is that all of them?
Well, yeah, I guess that's all the ones that have explicitly been unable to come up with a good answer for. We have plenty more questions. Don't anybody think that like
we're out of
questions. And if you've submitted a question, don't think that we're not going to get to it.
No, yeah.
We do plan on getting to all of our questions. It's just these ones.
It might take us 100 episodes.
Most of these we've had for a long, long time and just have not had a good answer for it.
Yeah.
So,
if anybody's ever worked at fast food, or if you're familiar enough with the way fast food works, is a lot of times they have like these timers up because they want to make sure people are getting served quickly.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, I have issues with that.
Right.
I'll save that for another time.
Right. Yeah. So like when from the moment a person comes up and starts ordering, the timer starts.
Yeah.
And then if it gets over a certain amount of time, it starts flashing like yellow or something.
Right.
And then if it gets over a certain amount of time, it starts flashing red. These ones have been flashing red for like 80 episodes.
Something like that. Yeah. 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 So thank you for everybody who submitted these. I hope I didn't come off as acting like any of these are bad questions.
Right. No.
There's nothing wrong with the questions. It's just a matter of how well we are suited to answer them.
Yeah. Yeah.
As well as how good of a forum this is for answering those questions.
Sure. Yeah. Because we want to give the best answers we can.
Absolutely.
And we can't always do that.
Yeah. We want to give helpful answers. We also want to give answers that are going to be interesting for everybody to listen to.
Sure.
If your question has a simple answer, it's harder for us to answer because it's, not everybody is going to have a great time listening to a simple yes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Or no, I've never played that game, or
it's
so
like,
on.
We don't play anything other than D&D.
I mean, that's not entirely true, but most of our experience is with D&D.
Sure.
All right. So that'll do it for our regular questions. We do still have our social media questions, and the social media question we're going to talk about today is actually from 2 weeks ago, because we did an off-topic one for last week, which we won't cover on the show.
Oh, sure.
So the question that we asked 2 weeks ago is, what is the name of your favorite town that you visited in a tabletop RPG?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, I know. Do you recall what your answer was?
I guess Cauldron is the most memorable.
Okay.
Memorable
and
one.
I don't think I had a good answer, but I mentioned the Lake of in a game I ran. So we got a few answers, not a ton, but a few. David on Facebook says, not sure if it counts, but the city of Fax from an old D&D story that I can't find online anymore. It was like a transcript of a game that went on for years. It was before 3rd edition, so it was AD&D. I feel like the name was something super generic, like Green Dragon Inn or something. Anyway, the only reason it's my favorite city is because that story is really what inspired me to play D&D way back when. I remember the priest, yes, priest, not cleric, fighting armed with a skillet. I remember the shady drow character who was just layers upon layers of stereotypical shady drow character bullcrap. It was wonderful. And in almost every game I've ran since then, there has been a major city named Fax. I think that's really cool. I asked him if that was by chance inspired by the NES side-scrolling action RPG Faxanadu.
Oh.
Have you ever played that as an old NES game?
No.
It was like a weird fantasy-themed game where I think story was the world was a giant tree and you started off down by the roots, and then you go through the game and you're like climbing up the outside of the trunk, and then you go inside the trunk and it's all really dark, and then you get up into the branches, and then there's like a castle up in the branches you're going to. Anyway, I was just curious if that was, he said no. is the end to that story. Next up, the DM's Council on Facebook said, I made an early campaign seaside port called Critwall that I highly enjoyed playing in. The name came from the town's emphasis on maintaining the surrounding tidal walls from raids and sea-dwelling monsters.
Ooh.
So Critwall. Over on Reddit, 00 Jiminy Cricket says, Myth, and it is spelled M-I-T-H-E, but it's pronounced myth. Make-believe is just that, one big myth. So, it's a good inspiration for a name for a town. Gizmo Trunks says, our campaign is based in an archipelago. Some of the islands are Toshi Island, Bayside, Volarta, Dewsbury Islands, Fool's Hope, La Suerta, Tortilla. It's pronounced tortilla, not tortilla.
Okay.
I guess. The way that was written, I wasn't 100% sure how to... It was all just one long sentence. So I hope I split those up correctly. Sapphire Shattuck says, the city-state of Arete, a massive city built on the stones left behind when a mountain was blown apart. So large, the different wards of the city need their own walls and gates. This is where our party had one of its most memorable adventures, tracking a serial killer and uncovering a dark secret about one of the most loved and decorated knights in the land.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing that dark secret was that his name was actually something different. I'm sure it was as innocent as that.
Right, yeah.
And not anymore.
He sometimes dresses up as a
goblin.
Yeah.
That was probably it. It's a dark secret if I ever heard it.
Yeah.
And then CJ Wolf on Reddit says, as a forever GM, I never get to visit towns. Frowny face.
Aww.
For D&D, though, I'm partial to Hamlet for obvious reasons. Small, but lots of NPCs and stuff going on. And while not really a town, I do like well-detailed city settings like Waterdeep, Tolis, or Lankmar. And Hamlet, for anybody who isn't familiar with Hamlet, was a town from... It was in the original Temple of Elemental Evil back in like 1st or 2nd edition, and it's been remade in editions since then. So like there's stuff out there for it. So over on Twitter, Collins B says, my first character had a throwaway town named Jungle City in his background that we eventually actually visited. Ended up being very memorable and had one of the climactic battles of the campaign. And Sarah B says, Collins B ran us through a town called Bogan's Knife, a tiny town full of drunk Australian gnomes that used the giant skeleton of a dragon as a city wall. I love the constant crazy party atmosphere and wacky antics.
Yeah. Reading all of these just hammers in that I'm so bad at coming up with names. Like some of these names are simple, but they're just nice.
Well, so let me tell you a little secret here. And I realized this a while ago, and I remember there was an episode of Crit Academy where they had one of their player tips was like, don't come up with silly names come up with like good names for your character, not silly names for your character. And that got me thinking, like, the difference between a good name and a bad name is how well people know it.
Right.
Any name is going to sound stupid at first. Like, no matter how, maybe there will be different degrees of how stupid it sounds, but the more you think about a name at first, the stupider it is. But eventually, no matter how silly it is, it'll just be another name.
Right. Or, with the example of Jungle City, like, it's like, okay, it's just a throwaway name, like, Jungle City, it's in a jungle, whatever. But now that this big climactic thing happened there, it's Jungle City.
Yeah.
Like, you guys remember Jungle City?
Yeah. Like, really, think about any city name or any, business name that you know of that you are familiar with in real life.
Detroit.
The more you think about it, it's something stupid. Like, New York is just New York. There was a city called York, and they're like, oh, let's just call it New York.
That's the new one.
You were saying Jungle City, it sounds silly. Atlantic City is the exact thing, but it's just a city.
It's like saying Ocean City,
Exactly. Oklahoma City. It's just a city in Oklahoma. Any name is silly until you get used to it. And then it's just another name. So like if you're afraid, this is to you and also to me, because I stress about names too. Whatever name you come up with, after a little while will just be another name.
Well, it's like when you say a word enough times, it loses meaning. So like a name is just a word you say enough times to where it loses meaning, and then it gains a new meaning.
There you go.
Just what it is, what it's named after.
That's perfect. When we first started this podcast, I liked the name InterPartyConflict, but it's like, what the heck are you naming a podcast InterPartyConflict for? But now it's InterPartyConflict. Right. Let's go. Because we're doing we're doing like an actual play podcast coming up.
Yeah.
And I'm stressing out over the name.
Right.
I'm sure whatever name we come up with will be fine after we're used to it. But like right now, I'm like, oh, what are we going to call it? What are we going to call it?
Conflict Man Mania Town.
All right, guys. Stay tuned for the new podcast, Conflict Man Mania Town.
Actually, it's growing on me.
Oh, no. Yeah, so don't stress about names. Like,
sure.
Yeah. And then
I haven't come up with a name for my character.
That's fine. That's what you've only got a few days, Jeff.
I'm working on it. I'm sorry.
No, you've got like a week and a half. You're fine. And then over on Discord, first, Peace Pancake said, that's an oddly specific question there, Gabe. But then later went on to say, it's probably one of the Star Wars ones. We all like Star Wars, but aren't super into it. So we paraphrased basically everything from the Pyramid, a gang lair that was just kind of similarly shaped, to Tortellini family for a mob family that had a similar Italian-sounding name. But I can't for the life of me remember any city names. Either they're not memorable enough or, and this is pretty frequent occurrence, we didn't name them at all. I guess I have to really step up my naming game. Shrug. And also Adam B on here said Middenheim. But no further details on that. I think it's interesting that Peace Story Pancakes mentioned Star Wars. If you want to hear some stupid names, go check out Star Wars.
Right.
The names in that are all terrible.
Yeah, they're
but
really
you're
bad.
familiar with them, so it's just another name.
Yeah.
Skywalker. Sky plus Walker. But
Yeah.
it's a cool name because it's Skywalker.
So it's, Solo.
There's a freaking
'Cause he's
planet.
a loner.
There's a freaking planet called Naboo.
Naboo. Or
That's such a. I would never name something Naboo.
Kashyyyk
Kashyyyk
has 3 Y's in it.
They're just names.
Why?
Every like tertiary character has a name and it's always stupid.
Like Poe.
Poe, exactly.
What? But I love that
It's
character.
a cool character, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, do you remember, this is a huge tangent, but I'm going to leave it in. Do you remember in the Attack of the Clones,
Okay.
there's the Death Stick guy?
The Death Stick guy.
The guy.
Oh, you want to buy some Death Sticks?
Exactly.
Yeah, that guy.
That character has a name.
Yeah, he does, doesn't
And
he?
it is stupid.
What is the name? I
It
can't
is
remember.
Ellen Sleazebagano. It was then later retconned to be Cel Sabagno, but no, it's Sleazebag. Like when he had an action figure you could buy.
And his name
was
was
Sleazebagano. Yeah.
Great.
That guy that's a sleazebag,
Yeah, his name
his
is
name is Sleazebag.
Sleazebag.
Star Wars is the biggest repository of terrible names that you are familiar with.
Right.
So if you ever feel like your names are bad, just go read some of the Star Wars expanded universe.
Right.
And you'll be like, oh, my names are pretty good, actually.
Not so bad. Not so bad.
And this week's social media question is going to be, what is the longest tabletop game that you've been a part of?
Sure. So one that's taken the longest?
Either one that's taken the longest in-game or out of game.
Sure.
I guess. Feel free to give us both or either answer.
Sure.
Or neither. Don't give us either. Just don't answer. I don't know. Please answer.
Please answer.
Yeah. So what's the longest tabletop? It's like, I want to say D&D campaign, but not just D&D campaigns.
Yeah.
If it's another game too.
I as far as playing, I think the Age of Worms we were going on for a while.
Probably. I want to say we were going on for about a year
Yeah.
with that. I could probably find the actual dates if I tried hard enough.
Sure.
but-
As far as like actual timeline and stuff, I'm not sure. It's probably the same.
Yeah.
When
When I was playing in the Ichi campaign, there was a point near the end of the campaign where we jumped ahead like 20 years or something. So we had like a whole lot of character stuff we could do in that time. But I don't know. I feel like that's kind of cheating a little bit.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, let us know what the longest RPG campaign you've been a part of. Cool. All right. So that's all of our questions for today, but we will, before we finish out, let's take a deep 100 episode breath. 100 episodes. As we toss another log onto the funeral pyre. And so this funeral pyre story was submitted by Brandon Blue via email. And The story starts as follows. Wendell Gunther, a young buck from the farmlands of Kansas, recent graduate of agriculture engineering program, volunteered for a space colonization mission. This was set in a near-future space horror campaign using GURPS. Firearms were limited, but Wendell convinced the operations to allow him to bring his father's pump shotgun for varmints and a .44 Magnum for them rattlin' snakes. His primary directive was to set up a sustainable food source, and food was important to living, as it usually is.
Sure.
Upon travel to New Earth, our Captain Jack, this player was terrible at names. The player was fine with names, just saying. Spotted another ship in distress nearby and went to rescue.
Now, a slight tangent, sorry.
Yeah.
Captain Jack Sparrow.
Sure.
But then there's also in Doctor Who Captain Jack Harkness. And
Okay.
It's just like Captain Jack.
So
It's just a
another thing about names.
Yeah.
Actually, sorry, there's a tangent in the middle of the Dragon's Horde here, not the Dragon's Horde, the Funeral Pyre. But a long time ago, I was listening to a podcast about the Friday the 13th series of horror movies. I don't know if anybody's familiar with them, but I'm gonna spoil who the killer was in one of the movies. So there's a couple of the movies that Jason is not the killer.
Okay.
So in one of them, the killer turns out to not actually be Jason. It's this guy named Roy. And I was listening to the podcast, and I mean, you might think, oh, that's a spoiler, but like this character has a very small part in the movie, aside from the fact that he's a killer. So you could watch the entire movie knowing the killer's name is Roy and not know who the killer is until the end. Anyway, I was listening to a podcast where the hosts were going on and laughing about like, oh, could you imagine how idiotic this series of horror movies would be if the killer was Roy? And my response to that is, the killer is Jason. Jason is no more iconic or serious sounding than Roy. It's just a person's name.
Right.
It's just that you are familiar with Jason. You're not familiar with Roy.
Right. Yeah.
So
there's not 3 other movies involving Roy.
Exactly.
Once there are, then you're like, oh God, Roy.
The only reason the only reason Jason or Freddy or Michael are scary names for a killer is because you've probably seen 10 movies with them as a killer.
Yeah.
It's not because there's anything scary about that name. It's just a name. Also, Jason and the Argonauts.
Oh yeah.
That is a character from myth, from, not medieval, but like a setting that a fantasy game could take place in, with a character named Jason, and it's no big deal. So like you could name a character Bob
or Wendell Gunther.
I guess. And it's only going to sound weird at first. It's not
Sure.
going to be weird after the first few sessions. Anyway, sorry. Enough tangent. Upon travel to New Earth, our Captain Jack, this player was great at names, editorialization from Gabe, spotted another ship in distress nearby and went to rescue. Upon exploring the ship, we found some crew members with skulls cracked open and brains missing or partly liquefied.
Ooh.
Other crew was missing, but eventually we powered up the sensors, which let us know they were locked in the engine room. We, of course, took everything that wasn't tied down.
Yeah.
We decided it would be best to overclock the engine and nuke the vessel.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I was the brazen big old country boy and opened the door to have our first monster lunge at me. Bam! With the shotgun, it goes down. Nobody surprised me. But the creature moans, "Thank you," in its death rattle. We realized it was a normal crew member, but pale, and his wound surrounded in thicker jelly-like blood, and he had a hole in his head, but brain still there.
Oh.
Well, take a few steps in to notice more crew members with wrenches and power drills coming our way. Bam! 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 With the shotgun, I went, taking them down one at a time, as the mechanic Jess worked some controls to start the engine to overload. After a few rounds of combat, the mechanic slips out and waits for me. Bam! Click! Last one goes down, I'm out of ammo. Perfect timing. I turn to Jack and Jess, and they have this alarmed look on their face. Wendell pretty obliviously thinks they're amazed at his heroism and shouts, "Just like riding a horse." The GM reveals that I'm interrupted by a loud bone-cracking sound and warm, thick goo running down both sides of my face.
Oh.
As he put it, the business end of a mind flayer just from the neck up fell from the grating above and landed on my head. While Wendell, from being kicked in the head so much by a horse or the moonshine, managed to barely survive the attack to the GM's surprise. He probably had half a mind flayer beak in his brain, which on his turn, Wendell fast drew his .44 Magnum, slurred, "You're gonna need some Pepto tonight," put the barrel in his own mouth, and pulled the trigger. This eliminated what small amount of functional brain was left in Wendell's open skull, but he did manage to tag the space octopus with the exit wound. which freaked out Jess and Jack even more due to the horrific scene I created, and at the time they thought it was controlling my actions. Jack ended up in shock and hasn't had a good night's sleep since. Jess, she puked her guts out as she carried Jack back to the transport. Wendell went from know-it-all college grad, space hero, red stain in the engine room, to radioactive vapor. What a grand life.
Oh, man. That's pretty good.
That was a long one, but
that's a good one.
That was a pretty good story. All right. So let's raise a glass in memory of Wendell Gunther, who reminded everybody that in space, no one can hear you drawl.
Clink.
Why did I say click?
Oh, you read click earlier.
I guess I read click. All right. Anyway, my glass clicked, apparently.
Oh, yeah.
It's out of ammo.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
All right.
You need a refill. Hold on.
Yes. So that'll do it for our 100th episode. Thank you all so much. Everybody out there, thank you for listening. We couldn't do this without our listeners. You know, we love you guys. We love that you love the show. We hope you love the show.
Right.
I guess. Just thank you for listening. Thank you for staying with us all this time.
Yeah.
Even if you're just showing up, thank you for listening. We really appreciate it.
Man.
Thank you to all of our patrons. You know, we definitely wouldn't have lasted this long without our patrons. But whether you're a patron or not, just the fact that you're here, the fact that you're hearing this means that we love you. You guys are great. So, you know, I guess stay tuned for another 100 episodes.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Question mark. Hopefully.
The end question mark.
Right. Yeah. So you guys are great.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Anyway, so if anybody would like to submit questions for us to discuss, items for the Dragon's Hoard, or stories for the Funeral Pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, links to media mentioned on the show, and running lists of questions and magic items, go to interpartyconflict.com. And I realized that we don't have a little place where you can go and see like other shows that we've been on. So I'm going to try to make a little page for
Oh, sure.
I've decided, I know I've said this before, I'm going to try really hard to make us a dedicated website during this break. I don't know if it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't, I apologize, but I am going to try very hard.
Sure.
Because our blog, it does what it needs to do, but it looks terrible. I'm sure I can make a website that looks at least as good as the blog.
Yeah.
And
I mean, because it's a Blogspot blog. Like it looks like a Blogspot blog. There's not, there's nothing to write home about.
I mean, I could probably make the Blogspot blog look better, but I haven't. And if I'm going to put the work into that, I'm going to put the work into making an actual website.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you can join the discussion on social media. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/InterPartyConflict, on Reddit at r/InterPartyConflict, on our Interparty Discord, or on Twitter at InPartyConflict for our weekly social media questions. Your answers might end up on the show. Find us on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, anywhere you download podcasts. Please rate, review, subscribe, or just tell a friend. If you'd like to support the show, check out the rewards at patreon.com/InterPartyConflict. There's a few different tiers, so anything you can spare, even $1 a month, would go towards making the show better, and you'll get bonus content for it. Jeff, tell us about FriendQuest.
FriendQuest is our YouTube channel where we play video games.
Yes. And speaking of video games, you can check out my side project, the Arcade Memories Podcast. If you'd like to submit your childhood memories of going to the arcade, record them or write them to me at arcadememoriespodcast@gmail.com. Also, head over to bit.ly/interpartyconflict to take a short survey about our show, what you like, what you don't like, etc. And just for taking it, you'll get 2 free printable board games courtesy of Mary and Tom over at hollandspiel.com. And our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hacker's RPG. So, Jeff, until next time.
You know, Gabe, after 100 episodes, I'm still really bad at these coming up with these send-offs. So, thank you for listening, everybody.
Yes, thank you so much.
Bye.